piece everything together, and knowing what I know about how the media worked and just the human mind in general allowed me to see really just how calculated everything was, and how really, I mean, because nothing big happens without anybody giving it the green light.
It's so hard for people that aren't psychopaths to understand this agenda, isn't it, David?
It's yeah, absolutely. People ask me all the time, like, why are they doing it? And I'm like, well, you have to be a psychopath to understand it.
I honestly promise you that getting out in nature, get your shoes off, I don't care how cold it is, get on some wet ground, whether it's on the grass, whether it's by the beach, wherever you can, and just make that connection back again, because it does clear some of that programming. So, don't be afraid to be laughed at, don't be afraid to be the loony one. And the other thing for me I've really learned is you don't need to have the answer to know that what we're being told isn't true. There's nothing worse than realizing that you have been doing their dirty work for us, and we've all done that in various bits and will continue to do, because they are so genius at manipulation. A big welcome back to the Live, Love, Learn podcast. And as you know, for new listeners, I'm your host, CatherineEdwards. And I am back with a really good friend and colleague today, David Cowan. And David is in Australia, I'm in the UK. And David and I really connected, I think, right back in probably 2020. And we've been
Mm.
having really fascinating discussions online and offline over this time, with really just trying to pull together for ourselves everything that's going on and the speed of the development and where we're being led towards. So we're going to have a really good conversation today about AI, some of the dangers of that, about some of the legislation happening in our country, about immigration, all sorts of things that are really happening that are pulling together to the one agenda, and very importantly also bringing into that conversation how important all of us have the courage to stand up and talk about what we believe in, and the significance of that will become more apparent as we go through today. So David, you're in Australia. How are things with you, and what's most taking your attention at the moment?
How's it going, Catherine? It's great to be back.
It's fab. It's fab to be back. These are the type of conversations I like. And just to let new listeners to the show know, David and I have what we would call more like coffee chats. We're having a discussion between friends online rather than not a formal interview. So we'll be going backwards and forwards a lot. So there's a lot that's happened since you've last been on the show, David.
Mm.
How are things where you are in Australia? Let's start with that.
Where do you even begin? It's worst as one word answer. Yeah, worst. Just like in terms of, as I would imagine in most countries around the world, the cost of living is just going through the roof. The property crisis is getting worse, and we don't have any housing. And of course, the government has promised that they're going to build a certain number of houses, and they fell way short of it in the first year, and they're never going to catch up. And nor do I think they even intended to. So yeah, that's just the answer in a nutshell.
Yeah, I would have to say here exactly the same here, worse. And a lot of our listeners have been with us since 2020 and the pandemic. And, it's wonderful to have this hope. But more and more, I'd love to have your thoughts on this, David. I'm coming back to what people like David Icke have been telling us for years, in terms of when you start understanding the end agenda, all the little bits that seem unrelated start to fall into place. So I would liken it to, if you've got a herd of sheep and you've got a sheepdog, you know that you're trying to get the herd of sheep into that pen, and that's what you're instructing your sheepdog to do. And there's loads of different ways they can get it into that pen, but the aim objection is to get those sheep into the pen. And I feel that's where we're at now, and have been probably for a long while. I'm just getting more and more aware of it, that it's so obvious the direction that they're trying to corral us all into, and they're using lots of different techniques for lots of different subsections of the population with all got different belief systems to get us in there on different routes. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, absolutely. I reached a point a few years ago where I think it was just after 2020 or around about that time where I pieced everything together, and knowing what I know about how the media worked and just the human mind in general allowed me to see really just how calculated everything was, and how really, I mean, because nothing big happens without anybody giving it the green light, if that makes sense. So it doesn't matter what happens, it's all connected. So you can say, okay, well, how is the immigration connected to the housing crisis? I mean, that's pretty obvious, but how is the immigration connected to the fact that they're now disarming, they're asking people to hand in their machetes here? So we've had a lot of machete attacks recently, and I think around the world actually, but definitely over East. And now the government's all of a sudden decided everybody should hand in their machetes, you know, to make things safer. And if you do it, I don't think in my state, I had to check up, you know, today, because one of my friends overseas said, I just heard that they're asking you to do this. Is that true? And I looked up and it said, yeah, in like South Australia, they're asking people to do it. So if you handed in before the end of the 1st of September, then you can do so without penalty. And so, and I think it's not just machetes, but also knives, I think. I don't know, don't quote me on that, but definitely machetes. And it's just the same thing. Like we had a false flag event in the 90s, a shooting, and then everybody handed in guns, and they did another gun collection just a few years ago. So you can see what's happening, and now it's knives too. So they're just disarming us in any way they can.
It's such a good point, because when we have conversation this, I think a lot of people that are listening to this, we've all got family members, friends, work colleagues, etc., who are on very different wavelengths to us, because if you haven't been looking into this, what I like to call the Hunger Games agenda, you know, 2020, 2030, all different things leading us towards the same control endpoint, it's very difficult for people that haven't been on that journey to think that any of this is possible. So when we start talking about this outside the circles that we're in now, and you know, we're including everyone listening to this because we know we're all on similar wavelengths, we don't need to agree on everything, but we've got a similar sort of concerns about what's happening in the world. You know, it does sound mad to the outside agenda and to the outside audience, but I can remember I was so taken in by how mad it was that America let people have bang bangs. I have to be careful with the words I use on YouTube, because if you use certain trigger words, they'll take the video down. So apologies for people listening to this on the podcast. But as a UK citizen, all we've ever had in the news since I can remember is how mad America is because you've got the school shootings and things. And as a Brit, we're just told, just get the bang bangs away from them and then you won't have that problem. And I was like, God, that's so common sense. Why don't they take them away? And then 2020 hit, and I heard an interview with someone. He was a famous American musician. I think it's Ted Nugent, and I was listening to him on London Real, and he explained it in such a way about, you know, this is the last almost defense against the governments who have, we now know, none of our governments have got our best interests at heart, far from it, and they're all being led and puppeted into a one world agenda. And then suddenly something clicks in your brain, you're like, I fell for it, hook, line and sinker. I mean, it's so hard for people that aren't psychopaths to understand this agenda, isn't it, David?
It's yeah, absolutely. People ask me all the time, like, why are they doing it? And I'm like, well, you have to be a psychopath to understand it, don't you? You can't make heads or tails of it. It doesn't make sense to the average person. It makes even less sense to the people who aren't aware of it. You know, even for people like us who are aware of it, it still doesn't make any sense, of course. But you know, because people we would think that, well, wouldn't you want the best for humanity? Wouldn't you want the best for society? Wouldn't you want the best of everything that you know, anything's possible? But it seems, well, it's not seems, it is, it's the opposite of that. So
Yeah, no, one of the things that was a big eye opener to me, because most of us, general public, we don't have access to a lot of this information, and that's why I think I'd love to come and talk on about AI next, because this links in. Technology can be an amazing tool, or it can be an amazing weapon. And someone like Catherine Austin Fitz really opened my mind for information I would never have found out if it wasn't for people like her speaking up publicly at huge cost. And when she's been on so many podcasts explaining the sort of black budget that all our governments have. And she was obviously mainly talking about the USA. And they have got literally trillions and trillions of dollars that have gone into building things like subterranean cities, and all these escape routes for the parasite class that people call the elites. So it comes back to even like things like geoengineering. People think, well, they're breathing the same air as we are, they're drinking the same water, which they're not. And we all know that the jibby jabby interventions, that they didn't take the real ones, whilst they're sitting there
Mm.
publicising everyone else. But they are extremely evil genius. So they have got their escape routes well planned. Whatever we believe in outer space, there's a reason why people like Elon Musk are so obsessed with Mars. They've got their tunnels, they've got their bunkers, they've got their safe spaces that we are not invited into should the shit really hit the fan. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, it's completely true. I mean, we've all seen videos of underground bases, with trucks going in and out. Sometimes I saw this one, you might have seen it, where somewhere in America, I think, where this truck was driving into a mountain, like it drove right into a mountain, and you couldn't see it from very far away, but there's clearly something in there. I wouldn't be at all surprised if they hollowed the mountain out,
Yeah.
or a portion of it, and went below as well. So yeah, they're all over the place. I mean, yeah, I don't know what else to add, but yeah.
Invited in, that's for sure. It's not all doom and gloom though, but I did want to talk to you about the AI side of things, because the AI revolution is literally taking speed. I'm never quite sure, David, whether it's because I'm getting older that time's really speeding up, or whether time really
No,
is
it's a
speeding up.
it is. I've been talking to a lot of people about this recently, and people have done videos about it. Yeah, the time is speeding up for sure. Like it's just going so fast.
Yeah, if we're living in a matrix or a simulation, they've put us on fast forward, that's for sure. But in all
Mm.
seriousness, on the AI side of things, you and I have had loads of offline discussions about this. And again, it's like a knife. A knife can be used to prepare an amazing organic meal, or it can be used to get rid of someone and take them off the planet. Being careful with my words again. But one of the things that I find really interesting, and I'm going to link a really good video that David and I are both halfway through watching from our friends at Inspired Channel with Greg Braden, because I really want people to listen and watch that as well. But one thing I wanted to ask about before we dive really into the AI agenda is, I want your opinion on this, David. We think and we're told that AI can't be sentient. Science has shown that most of our thoughts, memories, ideas are not actually within our brain. They're sort of out there in what I call the ether, what call it, other people have got different names for it. Now, my thoughts are that the whole things like 5G and the non-native EMFs are literally trying to make a man-made ether to connect this new technology like AI with what we would call, say, the Akashic records. What are your thoughts on that?
It's quite a crazy concept. Yeah, I think the whole thing with the injections that they made everybody take, over the last few years is connected to it in some way, and I think you're probably right in saying that. Obviously, they want to hook us up to the internet. Everybody knows that. Everybody in these circles knows that. But I would say that the AI has to play a part because they don't want us to do any thinking anyway, do they? So something's going to have to do the thinking for us. Makes perfect sense.
And I think this is why, you and I talk a lot about how important it is to speak up not, I hate the word about your truth, because that can change so much, based on what we are
Mm,
being fed. Because every single one of us, if I was to look at David's X account or YouTube feed, it would be different to mine. Probably ours would have quite a bit in common, actually. But, in
mm,
general, we're all being fed different information. So we don't understand, like if we go and speak to our parents, for example, or friends, or even children, we're all being fed such different information, and however immune we think to it, it is absolutely brainwashing us, mind control us. Please watch my series of videos with Jason Christoph on that. So when we're looking at a lot of this information in terms of where our AI is going and the information it's giving us, we know that, say, if I put something into ChatGPT and you put it in, we could get two very different answers. Why is that so important for people, David? Because people think that they're being told the truth with this AI.
yeah. Just before I answer that question, I wanted to highlight something which you just mentioned about how you're being brainwashed. We're always being brainwashed. And I had this incident 3 nights in a row, a couple of weeks ago. I had these very strange dreams. And when I thought about it, I remembered them all. And each dream was either something to do with the video I watched that day or even just a thumbnail
Yeah,
that I saw. And that's how powerful the subconscious mind is, and how it doesn't matter what you do, it's always going in. You can't reject any of it. So there's that. But in terms of the answer to the AI, I've been playing around with the AI a lot, as you know, over the last few months since I was bored at my job. And AI was something that me as a copywriter had started using many years ago, but I rejected it because I knew what it was. I knew I didn't want to use it because A, it was stealing my job, and B, I just knew the more people that use it, the bigger it's going to get, and I didn't want to be part of it. And then I succumbed, and then I started using it a lot, and I started asking it a lot of questions, and I sent some of the conversations that I had with it. And the thing I found interesting about the AI is it always gives you, quite often, the official narrative, but then if you disagree with it, it just backflips sometimes.
yeah.
It might keep pushing the official narrative on you, but then if you just hold firm and say, no, I think this, I think this, I think this, then it will disagree with you. So you have to take it with a grain of salt, really. You don't know. And I've seen other things, some other crazy stuff about it that, you really don't know what you're messing with. We don't know. We don't know what we're messing with. And I have you seen the video or the image, the ChatGPT logo? Have you
Yeah.
seen that? And you flip it and you overlay it. It's got the Star of David, and that cannot be a coincidence. That cannot be a coincidence. So, and I asked it about that. I said, "Did you know that if you flip your logo and put them, one over the other, it's got the Star of David?" And it goes, "Oh, well, these logos are created just randomly or something." And I was like, "No, that can't be a coincidence.
Yeah.
Logos always mean something. They always mean something." And we know how the dark forces work. They always flip things, invert things. They do mirror images. They do whatever they can to put it in your field of view. And so it wouldn't give me an answer on that. But yeah, it's obvious. It's obvious who's controlling it.
That is such a brilliant point, and I've actually got goose pimples. I've gone a bit funny to say that, because I have said this, and this is how dark and dangerous these things are, because none of us are immune to it. So I'll bring up an example that I've brought up loads of times before, but it's a fun example. So when I was a child, a long while ago, we had a program in the UK called Captain Pugwash. It was an animated cartoon for children, but lots of parents, in those days, we only had like 3 TV channels. So a lot of the time, the mother or father would be in the room whilst the kid was watching these TVs, and you had a very limited time scale you could watch it, because there were only a few programs on. I am that old, yes. And anyway, this program, Captain Pugwash, was on for years, and it was absolutely hysterical because they had two characters in there. One was called Seaman Staines, because it was about a pirate ship, and one was called Master
Uh-huh.
Bates. And
Yeah.
for years, obviously the children wouldn't know what this means, but all the adults watched this for years, and they didn't pick up on it because we, as a survival mode for the way the human brain works, and not just humans, animals have this too, but humans we'll talk about for the moment, is our brain is filtering stuff all the time. So there's so much going into our subconscious that we're not consciously aware of. So because everyone was thinking this was an innocent children's program, no one noticed it. And then once one person points it out, everyone's like, oh my goodness, how did I not see that before? And this is why things like the ChatGPT logo are so important, because they're subliminally putting these messages and reinforce them into your brain. You know, loads of people have done analysis of the Disney films and seen all sorts of phallic symbols, hidden
Pedo symbols, yeah. There's pedo symbols everywhere.
Everywhere, and most normal people wouldn't see them. So this is how deep the mind control goes, and it's hard for most people to believe, but it's so important. And I think for me, we can't get, you know, it's here with us now, but that I'm going to diverge a bit and explain why I want your opinion on this, David. There's a lot of people now, so many people talking about water and the importance of water. So a typical human is 99.9% molecularly water in their body. And by volume, depending on the age, it's like between 60 and 80%, depending on age, hydration, health, etc. But in terms of the number of molecules in your body, we're mainly water and microbes. You know, so that's what makes up most of us. And we have got, over the last particularly 150 years, so deliberately out of sync with nature. We wear shoes, we're disconnected from grounding, and you know, when you're grounding, you want to be on the wet grass, the wet sand. That's why the sea's so powerful. But the point is that we've been deliberately herded into cities and ways of living where we're sitting in front of these machines, we're not out in nature, we're not getting our hands into the soil growing our own food, we're not drinking milk directly from a cow, whatever you think about that, but I'm just giving some examples. And so all of these are disconnecting our vital life force, intuition, connecting to the ether, whatever you want to call it, all this information that's out there that we can pick up if we're in resonance with nature. And so now they've got us all, most of us, in a perfect state to be controlled by things like AI and ushered into the agenda. Whereas actually, when people get really depressed about it, I honestly promise you that getting out in nature, get your shoes off, I don't care how cold it is, get on some wet ground, whether it's on the grass, whether it's by the beach, wherever you can, and just make that connection back again, because it does clear some of that programming. What are your thoughts on that, David?
Yeah, I sort of so much to touch on, because I saw a video recently where this girl was saying the pineal gland is the most sensitive gland in the body or something, and there are like 4 different ways that they calcify it or make it unusable. And like glyphosate is one, EMF is one, probably fluoride. I can't remember what the other one was. But I've been going down all these rabbit holes recently. Not so much rabbit holes, but just I came across this Instagram account, and I don't know where he gets his information from, but I'm thinking of buying one of his books or both of his books, because he's got a whole university online where you can learn through video. He talks about all these different things and like the way that we should be thinking, you know, how really we should be thinking and living, right? And like the secrets of all this stuff. And one of the ones he said, people used to carry canes all the time, you know, like a cane. And the reason they did that wasn't because they couldn't walk, is because they had like copper on each end and a wooden thing, so it would ground them all the time. And there was this other video I saw, which is completely unrelated, but it's EMF, and this guy there was a map of America, and at like for 12 hours they would blast the whole of the continent with this EMF, some kind of frequency, right? And it wouldn't just go all over the country, it would hit only the populated areas. So it basically missed the entire Midwest. It was just like East Coast, South, and the West, and you could see it. And so they're hitting us in so many different ways. But definitely grounding, I don't think it can be I don't think you can recommend it highly enough. I noticed that because what I did, I have a grounding rod. I think I've told you about this. I have a grounding rod out my room, out the front of my room, and then I have a copper wire that comes into my room, and I can hold on to it whenever I want to. And
That's
when I'm in
brilliant.
bed, like in winter, it's a bit hard because I have too many too many covers on, and I have a sleeping bag. But in summer, I can just lie on it all night and ground myself the entire night. And I've noticed that I have this pain sometimes in my leg, but when I ground myself, it goes away. And so yeah, it's very beneficial for us to be out there in nature, grounding as often as possible. You can get grounding mats. You don't even have to do that. You can just
Yeah.
plug it in, and and it may help you sleep.
These things are so important because every time when we look at this and it can seem overwhelming and depressing, I think when we realize that actually what we've got to do is to remember how all animal life is designed to live. And no animal is designed to live in a big city. Even rats, it causes so many issues with the rat population when they're in city environments that you don't get when you're out in the countryside. And I think all of this is tied in for me to the population argument. So we've got on one set point people saying we're overpopulated with humans. On another, we've got people like Elon Musk saying we're below populated and we're not when the replacement wage. And again, something else I want your opinion on, very controversial. But first and foremost, I don't believe for 1 minute any of the population figures. So we know there's loads of people that are not registered anywhere. So how the hell do they know what the populations are? They can tell us whatever it is, and us lesser mortals have got no way of judging that anyway. Secondly, the population that we're at today, when you look at where most humans are situated, most of the populations are situated in huge, large cities or shanty towns or whatever, not scattered nicely around in areas where they've got their own little territory where they can live in balance with nature like any other animal has to survive. So for me, trying to keep the population rates, whatever they are, and I have done a video on that, search for it on my channel, trying to keep them at replacement rates is why do you want to keep them in a broken system? To me, it's just loose harvesting again. And there's no other plant or animal in the whole of the earth that can survive when their population outgrows the resources that they're living off.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there are many reasons why they put us into cities. One, it's obviously easy to control, but two, they can run that game. They can say, "Oh, we don't have enough space for this." If you look at Australia, just for instance. I mean, yes, it's desert for the most part, but it probably wasn't always. And
Well, it wouldn't
and
be if they
so
get the CO2 keep going up. It would be nicely covered.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's just the only reason why it seems overpopulated, and you go out there and you're in a traffic jam is because the city is only a certain size, and people keep coming to it because that's where people keep coming in there. Or obviously, what they're doing now, they're flooding the countries, flooding the
Yeah.
cities with immigrants. We have like 200,000 coming every month. You know, it's like 10% of the population, the whole population of Australia every year, 10%.
So let's
And
talk about that. Tell me through what your thoughts are on the immigration, because every single person watching this, I think we're going to have the same problem in our countries. I mean, UK, it is an absolute joke. I mean, how the whole island isn't just sinking under the weight of it. It's, it's ridiculous.
yeah,
So talk me through what your thoughts
what?
are on the immigration.
Well, it's obvious. It's pretty obvious to me what's happening. They and they're obviously flooding us, right? But the if you think about it, and you think about where these people are coming from, and you think about like which countries, and it could be many different countries. But think about what's happened to those countries over the last few decades. Those countries were once beautiful countries and probably very self-sufficient and rich in resources, but they've become war torn and they're in poverty. And why? Because it's all part of the same agenda. You think about the long game that's being played here. It's been played for decades, and they just I saw a video of, I think it was Iraq many years ago, and it was this really really nice place. It was absolutely
Beautiful.
beautiful. Yeah, And now it's terrible. And there are so many places like that. And so it's all part of the same thing. You will destroy your country, destroy your way of life, and so you have to go somewhere. And so then they bring people in, and then you get some people in my country are standing up and saying, well, it's fine. We're not against immigration, but at least take care of us first. We live here, we're paying the taxes. And that's the thing that pisses me off the most, is the fact that we're doing things. Okay, well, yeah, apparently in England, they're housing many, I don't know, thousands upon thousands, tens of thousands of people in hotels, and you guys are paying for it all with the tax-paid dollars. We have the same thing. We have islands where people are staying, and these guys used to get free cigarettes.
Yeah.
Obviously, free, really nice meals, or if you look on the other end of the scale, I just saw a video, and I don't know if this is true. Maybe they're just saying this, and if it is true, then it's travesty. America's thinking about building some kind of base on the moon or something. Like, why the hell would you build a base on the moon that costs billions upon billions of dollars when you've got a homelessness crisis? When you could put that money there, and a billion other problems. And the same thing happens. It's just the same thing that happens in every country. We give shitloads of money away to other countries, and I know you probably do, and America probably does, and Canada, and a lot of countries do. And meanwhile, homelessness is going through the roof in all countries, and I don't know how many. I've lost count of them. Just the number of scams or ways that the government has been doing deals with other companies or other, basically funneling money out of the taxpayer. Just this year, but we know this has been happening for a long time too. So imagine how rich we would all be if none of those things existed. It's insane. It's absolutely obscene.
Yeah, because it's not
it's crazy.
Have more money. Not, if you're, say, in a family, say you're in a position where you've got children and you've got a couple that have got children, you could go back to having one partner at home looking after the children, growing some food, cooking proper meals, raising the children not in front of screens, etc. There's so many things that could be done. And one of the things I've noticed, David, without any shadow of doubt, is that it's so hard because the way these agendas get through is pulling on people's heartstrings. So I doubt whether there's anyone watching this that isn't thinking, if someone is genuinely a refugee that's got to get out of war, and I don't like just saying women and children, because the poor men need to get out too, but without a shadow of a doubt, in the UK, when Ukraine happened, we had loads of Ukrainian women and children come over here and very few men. And so that seemed much more genuine. Whatever, we're not even going to cover the Ukraine fiasco because that's a whole other can of worms. But it was obviously women and children coming over. Now, for the last 5 years since that, it is all fighting age young men. Now, whatever their true status, these people are traumatized. You try being uprooted from all your connections, all your families, and being sent somewhere where you don't speak the language, where their culture is completely different, their food is different, the environment is different. If we take an Icelandic or Norwegian fjord horse and bring it over to the UK, because our soil is so different, they get all sorts of metabolic diseases that they don't get in their native countries. Our sunlight is different, the bits that they're not blocking out. So you immediately have got a recipe for physical, emotional, psychological trauma of these people coming in. And we all know that the whole MK Ultra agenda is trauma-based mind control. So these people now are, again, this is how, to me, all the bits of the jigsaw puzzle pull together. And it also pulls into the absolute ludicrousy of the corrupt fiat currency system and tax system. And a lot of people know a lot more about that than me. But we can't, you made such a good point there, we can't look after our own homeless people in any of our populations. We can't look after our veterans that have given up their lives to protect us, however corrupt where they've been sent is. The people on the ground doing the work have got the best intentions to protect their nations and their families. we ignore all those people and our own countries, and for years we've been told we haven't got the funds to sort them out, but suddenly we can take in millions of illegal fighting age men into all our countries and house them in hotels, give them food, give them mobiles, give them cigarettes. If that doesn't show people that we've been lied to, I don't know what is. But then, David, look at the agenda of what they're doing now. I don't know what it's like in yours. You've mentioned about the machetes. But over here now, people are starting to protest and fight back because there's been a lot of sexual assaults going on. Do you think that's part of the agenda? Because the more we get these riots in the street and people saying, no, enough is enough, and almost like civil, whatever you call it, unrest, what all they're doing in here is they're putting in new legislation to put those people, the protectors, in prison and everything. So it's almost like they're baiting us out to do something.
For sure.
The problem, reaction, solution, so they can put more controls in our place and blame it on us to do it. Hi everyone, it's Catherine here, and before I dive into today's episode, I want to really quickly share something that's so important to me. I love hosting this podcast because it allows us all to explore those big questions, challenge our programming, and uncover the natural truths that truly empower us. But did you know my real passion's working one-on-one with animals and people, helping you or your animal cut through the noise, find the root cause of imbalances, stress, illnesses, or really just create a personalised plan that actually works for you. So whether you're here for your own healing or you're a dedicated animal guardian, wanting the very best for your dog, cat, horse, any four-legged or scaled or winged companion, I'm here for you both. I work with animals and humans, but I especially love helping the animals thrive. That is my real happy place. So my recharge and reset consultations and online courses are packed with practical tools, printable resources, lifelong access, and the main thing is you'll never feel alone on this journey. And they work. Just head over to my website and check out the testimonials. So if you're really ready to take action and not just listen, head over to CatherineEdwards.life, that's Catherine with the C and .life at the end, and explore my courses and consults, or if you want to, book a free 15-minute chat to see if I can help, because it's really important we stop outsourcing our health, really look after our animal companions better than before, and start leading by example. Now back to the podcast. Thank you.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that's out of the question, for sure. I did see a video where I think it was the Islington tube, maybe, and the story was, because I only saw the aftermath, but the story was that there was a guy, supposedly an immigrant, who punched a guy who was holding a toddler, and the toddler fell down quite a number of stairs, actually, and then a few other men stepped in and handled this guy for the dad, and who got punched. And I mean, how? Of course, that was going to happen eventually, right? I mean, and they're probably counting on it. But I'm sure they were, because why wouldn't they be? But I don't know what legislations they're putting in place. But I do know that, and maybe it's the same in your country, but we have laws that don't protect people that own homes in home invasions. So they actually protect the criminals a lot more. So, and what I mean by that is, if someone goes into your house and breaks into your house, you're not allowed to defend yourself with any means greater than what they have to attack you with. So if they have a knife, you can't use a baseball bat. Or I mean, it's even quite difficult to discern which is worse, in that instance. Is a baseball bat worse or is a knife worse? I mean, they both can be pretty deadly. And if you are found to protect yourself with something greater, then you could go to jail for it. And it's obscene. And I've heard many, many stories. And so over East, they're having a lot of break-ins, a lot of home invasions. And I can imagine that obviously that the law isn't there for the people,
Yeah.
Like no system is. But it makes you wonder. I mean, well, not wonder like what's happening, but wonder where it's going to go,
Yeah.
and how far it will go, because almost nothing can stop it. I mean, not necessarily nothing. I know there are solutions out there, like the one you showed me earlier, but yeah, it seems as though, I think, I know in Queensland here they are talking about implementing this law called Castle's Law, which will allow you give you the right to defend your home any means necessary, which I think they should have everywhere.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I'm sure you've seen those videos in America where people just go in and loot a store because the security guard can't do anything. They're literally
I
not
know,
allowed to
it's
stop them.
absolutely horrendous. It's just literally horrendous. It's like in the UK where they don't prosecute the RAPE. I'm not, trust me, guys, I can't say this word on YouTube. RAPE gangs that are targeting vulnerable children, and all you're doing is giving a green card for people to keep going out and doing that behavior. So, but on the positive side of things, there are some solutions, and David and I will be coming back probably in a few weeks' time to talk about one of them. But there's some common sense solutions that I think a lot of us can then really, really up our game on. So we've already mentioned the grounding, things like really getting a good system to clean your water. Again, I've got a video going up about that. There's loads of things, but please look into it, guys. EMF protection, I've spoken about this for years, is absolutely crucial. But if you're using EMF protection, for goodness sake, make sure you're using something that is proven to work, because there's so many cons out there, David, aren't they? They sort of, again, show people how dangerous, and then all these companies spring up selling literally snake oil.
Yeah, I've got to get a good one. I haven't looked into it too much. I know you sent me one a while ago, but I
Yeah,
just haven't got around to it getting, because they're not cheap either.
they're not
And,
cheap.
some of them,
Ones that work aren't cheap. Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
but there are some solutions. So in terms of one of the other things I wanted to talk to you about is the importance of speaking up. And this will look different for all of us, but just to sort of put a few little things around it, like you mentioned about your dreams, and I think everyone can think of scenarios like that where that's happened to them. We know that AI is listening to us all the time. Even if your phone's switched off, it's listening to you. Anyone who's got a modern car, your sat nav is tracking you, whether you like it, whether you've got it switched on or not. We know these devices, these computers are tracking us all the time, even when they're switched off. So all this information for artificial intelligence is tracking us and getting to know us so that they know where our weak points are and our influencing points are. And all of this is also going into stuff that feeds information going out to everyone around us. So if we've got the guts to speak up, and even if you don't know the answers, to ask those difficult questions, it can be a little trigger point to sort of snap people out of some of this brainwashing at times and get them to sort of not live up hope of asking different questions. So what are your thoughts, David, on why it's so important that people keep having these conversations, whether it's over the dinner table, online, in work, or whatever, and what can people do about that to try and sort of raise awareness?
Well, I think it's the same thing. You got to do it for the same reason that hypnosis works or repetition works, because the more you talk about it, the more people are going to come around to it eventually, and maybe do their own research. If you say it once, they're probably won't do anything. They'll probably just call you crazy. But if you keep doing it, and perhaps because the more people that talk about it, the more people are going to talk about it, right? It's going to kind of have this flow-on effect, and then all of a sudden, one of their friends is going to say something, or someone else will say something, and that may cause them to do some more research or actually look into things, and then the more people know about it. So I think that's why.
That's such a good point, because that is, repetition is a main form of mind control, a massive main form of mind control. And even if I had a really funny example a couple of months back, which actually is exactly what you're describing. So in one of my group of friendship groups, well, actually most of them, I'm the really odd one out. I am definitely the cuckoo in the nest. And so I've been saying conversations about, it could have been about jibby jabbies, it could have been about EMF, it could have been about what's in our water, could have been about geoengineering, anything. And most of the time they ignored it. And then one of my friends came back to me and she said, do you know, Catherine, I was telling this other friend, I won't mention her name, about what you've been telling me. And she said, I have to be honest, I was taking the piss out of you because I was saying Catherine believes they're spraying toxic stuff in the sky. It's absolutely ridiculous. And we were having a good old laugh at your expense. And then this second friend came back a couple of weeks later and she'd seen something from someone else. And she sort of said, well, you know what we were laughing about Catherine about? I think she might have a point, actually. So those planting the seeds, even if you're the butt of people's joke, if they reject your advert, I mean, my friends did it very nicely. I mean, they do still talk to me. They just think I'm loony, but they're not nasty with it. So, you just got to grow a thicker skin. But these seeds, you never know when they're going to take hold. So, don't be afraid to be laughed at. Don't be afraid to be the loony one. And the other thing for me, I've really learned is you don't need to have the answer to know that what we're being told isn't true. So I've been digging really deep over the last year into the virus myth. And I'm a biologist. I've studied this for years. And I very much now believe that viruses, as we're taught, do not exist at all. But I don't know what causes certain illnesses to spread. Just because I don't know that doesn't mean that the viruses are real. Just because you haven't got the answer. So I think also it's being brave enough to say, I know this isn't right and this is why, but I can't tell you what the answer is yet, but I'm going to keep looking.
You're never going to have all the answers. I saw a doctor post about that. He said viruses do not exist, and I have two things to add to that. One, and I think I told you this a couple of weeks ago when I was at work, or maybe it was last year, but anyway, a couple of people were sick. My boss was really sick, and I felt like I was getting sick. And then by the time I got home on the bus, I was fine. And to me, it's more of an energetic thing than it is an actual, germ thing or whatever. More than a physical thing, it's an energetic thing. And what I mean by that is when you're around people that are detoxing, it sends a signal to your body to detox too. And I had another point, but I don't remember right now. But it makes perfect sense because the other way they do it is through EMF. They can make the whole. We know that they're hitting us with the EMF, and what do you think that's going to do? It's going to make you It's going to give you all kinds of symptoms. It's going to give you all kinds of. That's largely how they did the C-19 thing through EMF.
Oh, completely.
And that's what they do for pretty much all big pandemics that they had, like Spanish flu and some other ones too. It was always something to do with some radio frequency, or they were just doing a new thing, installing a new thing. And we all know how many 5G towers went up during in those years, a few years ago.
Yeah.
So, and then obviously the other way they do it is through the jabs, because they tell you need this thing, whether you need it or not. You go and get it, and then everybody gets sick again. It's like a second wave. It's what the second wave is. When if nobody got it, nobody would get. Well, maybe not then because they do the EMF still. But it's so ridiculous. Like, because in Australia we had barely any cases or deaths because we were an island, completely isolated, right? And then after they rolled everything out, all of a sudden we got all these, and they could say, oh, because the borders were open now. Everybody, of course that wasn't the case. Everyone was just getting really sick because of the injections.
That's such a good point. I just want to see if I can share this. Can you see that, David? Can you see my page here? So on my website, CatherineEdwards.life, Life, go to the blog page, people. I'm putting more and more out here. But there's one here that I wrote about rethinking viruses, ether, and frequencies, and it's just really worth it. It's not, it's on this subject, and so much agrees with what you said there. And I just wanted, so have a look at these blogs. I've got loads more that I've just got to edit and put out, but there's some really interesting ones there and some much more interesting ones coming up. So do take a look out there, because, and I share a lot of them on my newsletter. But one of the things that I think is really fascinating on that is like, just when you get back to a little bit of common sense. So most people have heard about organ transplantation. That is a whole different, we'll have to do something on that because it's horrific once you start looking into that. But people know if they get an organ transplant, they have to take anti-rejection drugs. Because if you put a different organ from a different person inside you, your body will try and reject it because it doesn't recognize it as you. So most people accept that as, yeah, that's common sense. Every single jibby jab has got some sort of foreign DNA in it, either from a monkey gene or a lactose kid or from a human. So of course they're going to trigger your body to start going into these autoimmune things. So that's just a food for thought for people to think about. But just we're coming up to sort of the hour now. In terms of, well, so I would just finish that conversation off for me, then I won't say any final thoughts for you. On the speaking up for things, a lot of it is just asking questions in my sense. You know, what about this? Well, how do you explain this? The reason why something like the virus, a lot of people might say, well, I don't really care. But the thing is, most of the mass jibby jabbies are against so-called viruses. So if the whole pretext that that pharmaceutical model has been built on is completely flawed, then there's no way the jibby jabbies can work. Now, of course, they're not all against viruses, but most of them are, particularly the ones that are rolled out globally. So why does it matter? It matters massively because if the core principles of what we're building a whole pharmaceutical model on are wrong, then no wonder the chronic diseases and the death rates coming, you know, the death rates going up, early death, chronic diseases going up massively in animals, in humans, etc. No wonder, because we're doing something that's completely against what it's meant to be doing. People think they're doing it to help their health, and it's actually doing the opposite. So there's a lot going on, a lot to pull together for people. What are some of your sort of things that are keeping you sane in these times, David?
That's a good question. I would have to say just being creative and getting out into the sun as often as possible. I don't get as much sun as I'd like. I really would like to get out there more. It's been, it's winter now, so we don't really get much sun, but today's been nice. But yeah, having things to occupy my time with outside of just watching videos and going down rabbit holes that don't serve me, because the vibration is so important. And when you're creative, you naturally raise your vibration, and you don't have to, and you can't consume anything negative because you should be in the zone. So I think I can't recommend having some kind of creative outlet, highly enough, because it's so great for your mental health, and it gets you. We all should really be creating more than we consume, because the more people that create, that's what they're trying to destroy. They can't create. We're the creators. And so to answer your question, yeah, creativity. I've taken a bit of break from music, but I've got a lot of books that I want to write now. So I've got a whole pile of books, and yeah, I'm going to invest my time in writing.
I love that. I think writing is really, really key in a time when, writing.
Real writing, not AI writing.
Yes, exactly. Real writing is absolutely key. Just getting, you probably saw me scribbling loads of notes here as I go through, because when you actually pick up a pen, Cathy O'Brien covers this really well in her brilliant book, PTSD, Time to Heal, which is a fantastic little book that I think every single person on the planet needs. But the issue of picking up a pen and actually handwriting, particularly if you're doing joined up or cursive writing, activates different neural pathways in the brain to typing. And that's why I never use anything like a Kindle. I always get a good old-fashioned book and read, because that's completely different than reading it on an electronic device. And when you've got
Yeah.
a version of a book, I mean, if you could see my office here, my house, our house is just full of books. My children, both my children, are absolutely prolific readers. And the thing is, a book, this is why throughout history they've had book burning, because books are a record of what was available there. If you've got an old book that was printed 100 years ago, that's what the author said. Anything online at the press of a button can be changed, can be manipulated. Our videos can be changed and manipulated now. But get yourself the hard copy books, because if the SHIT really hits the fan, we need that, whether it's cookbooks to how to cook, whether it's gardening books, whether it's self-development books, whatever it is, get the books, because it's absolutely key.
I just wanted to add something that I was going to speak on earlier about, which I forgot, but it's about just how we're being stifled in every way, and a lot of people, myself included, we got our wisdom teeth removed. I don't know if you did, and the reason for that is because our mouth just isn't big enough, apparently. Yeah. But the real reason our mouth isn't big enough is because we're not being taught how to develop our jaws properly. If we developed our jaw properly, we'd have more than enough space to fit the wisdom teeth. And that's why you see a lot of people with like recessed chins, or maybe they got like the front of their face looks like it comes inward a little bit, because their front jaw, their maxilla hasn't been fully developed. And so the thing about the teeth is that the wisdom teeth, why they're called wisdom teeth, is because they connect straight to the heart. Every tooth is connected to an organ. And so the wisdom teeth connect straight to the heart. And that's also a way they disconnect us from the heart, from the heart intelligence, really, because that's the heart is, I think it was 5,000 times more electromagnetic than the brain. Yeah. And so, yeah, I mean, it's no wonder we are where we are, because we don't have, we have all these things that are disconnecting us from the way we should be living.
And that's such a good point. And that, honestly, all of these points, we could literally do a whole session on there, because, if we were eating like we were meant to eating, not eating soft mush all the time, we would develop our mouths properly. If we were outside exercising, we would be breathing properly. So all of these.
That's what helps. It's like your maxilla has a direct impact on how you breathe.
Absolutely.
And your nasal, your breathing. So if your maxilla is recessed, then you're going to breathe properly. You're going to get sleep apnea or something like that.
Yeah. I love it. All these connections, and I think I still feel very, very positive. The reason I go down these rabbit holes is because, look, other things, a lot of the stuff they're bringing in, you could explain, oh, this is good for us, this is going to help me. And if you don't understand the overall agenda, you don't understand that, oh no, it's really not. And so you can take this information. Awareness is absolutely key, because then that gives you as an individual and for your family better choices, in terms of you're not going to be quite as hoodwinked. We're all still going to be hoodwinked, there'll be loads of stuff that I'm still not aware of. But equally, you're going to be more aware and better able to protect yourselves, protect your family, and not do their dirty work for them.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think the biggest takeaway is that we're doing a lot of the dirty work for them. We're the ones pushing all the agendas. You know what I mean? They're just giving us the gun and we're pulling the trigger. So, in almost all cases. And it's not always the people on the civilian level, but sometimes it is. Many times it is. And so, yeah, if we just work up to ourselves on a mass scale, this will end. But that's going to take a while.
It is, and we've got some more that will be back within sort of certainly a month or so to talk to you about that. But look, don't despair, people. There's nothing worse than realizing that you have been doing their dirty work for us, and we've all done that in various bits, and will continue to do, because they are so genius at manipulation. But the more we keep these conversations going, the more we can sort of outwit the process and sort of stay. Even if it's not one step ahead of the game, because it's probably not, we're so creative as a species. We are so creative, and we can all come together in communities and do that, which is what this is all about. So if this conversation has resonated with you at all, please do us a favour. As you well know, the shadow banning is real on all platforms. These are the conversations that they do not want to come out and have shared. So if this does resonate with you, share it with a couple of people. Put a comment below in the comment box, because that really helps the algorithms, and just send it to a couple of people and they can laugh at us, but you never know. It just might set a little seed off in someone's mind, and that's what we need, because we need to keep not giving up on our species, and we need to keep realizing that most people are completely unaware of how manipulated they're being. Thanks so much, David. I always love our conversations. Hopefully I can persuade you to come back again soon. And if people have got particular areas that they'd like us to chat about, please let us know in the comments. We're always really open to suggestions. Any final words from you, David?
Yeah, I wanted to say, yeah, thanks for having me on again. And this is something that I've been thinking about recently, and it's something I've noticed in people, and that is to use your why questions wisely. Because why can be the most powerful question you ever ask. It can also be the stupidest question you ever ask. And I think if we focus too much on the minutiae, and we ask, well, a lot of people I know, you tell them something and they'll just go, why, straight away. And it doesn't even matter. Like, quite often it's not even that important, the why. But if we keep doing those stupid whys, we're going to miss the bigger picture.
That's such a good point. That really is a really good point. And, you know, we can all do a self-audit and sort of say, look, what is broken in my life? How connected am I feeling to a community of people that I trust? Is absolutely key. We're social beings. We can't survive in isolation, and we certainly can't thrive in isolation. You know, how connected are we to my community? I've been spending loads of time to this, and it's just been absolutely wonderful, particularly on the food sovereignty side of things. That's a real passion of mine, particularly as I've got so many animals to look after. And you know, ask yourself, how's my health? How's my community? How am I feeling motivation wise? What's my physical health like? My emotional health, my spiritual health, my financial health? And every single one of us will have areas of those that are out of balance. And, you know, go out there and do some work on it. Connect with people that are going to give you tools and techniques. You know, there's a lot of good people out there and a lot of good things on this lovely planet. We just need to choose wisely. Thanks so much for everyone listening. David, I love it. Thanks so much for being back here. Let us know your comments, everyone, and stay positive. Take care. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen. And if you feel inspired, please do share with your friends and family. This helps us spread the word and also helps me encourage some exciting new guests to take part in this podcast. And above all, stay curious and stay free.